The baby's monitors screamed. Armed guards surrounded the incubator. And for the first time in his life, Chairman Kang discovered someone he couldn't control, his own son. Then a hospital cleaner stopped mopping and started singing. The NICU ward on the 7th floor of Seoul's most expensive private hospital looked more like a fortress than a nursery. 6 men in black suits stood at attention, earpieces glowing faintly in the dim light. Their hands rested near concealed weapons. Outside the glass partition, nurses whispered nervously, glancing at the man who stood perfectly still before the incubator. Chairman Kang was 43 years old and had never begged for anything in his life. He'd built an empire on calculated violence and unwavering control. Politicians returned his calls within minutes. Rivals disappeared without explanation. His word was law in 3 provinces. But none of that mattered now. The baby inside the incubator screamed with a force that seemed impossible for something so small. 3 days old, 2.8 kilograms. His son, the heir to everything Kang had built. And the child wouldn't stop crying. "Sir," the pediatrician suggests. "I've heard what they suggest." Kang's voice was ice. "Nothing works." The head of his security detail shifted uncomfortably. "Should we bring in a specialist from?" "Already tried. 2 of them." Kang's jaw tightened. "Get out." The guards hesitated, then filed out silently. They knew better than to argue when he used that tone. Alone now, Kang stared at his son through the clear plastic. The baby's face was red, fists clenched, mouth wide open in endless protest. Wires connected tiny limbs to machines that beeped and hummed. Born premature. Fragile. Fighting. Kang reached out slowly, his finger touching the incubator's surface. "Please," he whispered. A word he'd never said to anyone. "Please stop." The crying intensified. Behind him, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, came the sound of water being wrung from a mop. Kang turned sharply. In the corner of the room, partially hidden by a medical cart, was a woman he hadn't noticed before. She wore the pale blue uniform of the hospital's cleaning staff, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She was focused on the floor, methodically working a mop across the tiles. "Who let you in here?" His voice could have cut steel. The woman froze. Her eyes widened slightly and she straightened, gripping the mop handle. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm on night shift. I was told to clean this ward before sunrise." Her voice was soft, careful. American accent. "I can come back later if—" "You should have been stopped at the door. The guards let me through earlier. Before you arrived. I've been trying to stay quiet." She glanced at the incubator, then quickly looked away. "I'm almost finished." Kang was about to dismiss her when something changed. The baby's crying shifted, not stopping but faltering slightly, the rhythm interrupted. He turned back to the incubator. The woman had started humming. It was so quiet at first that Kang thought he'd imagined it. A low, wordless melody that seemed to come from deep in her chest. She wasn't looking at the baby. She was still cleaning, moving the mop in slow, rhythmic circles. But she was humming. And the baby's crying was slowing. Kang watched, motionless, as his son's screams became whimpers, then hiccups, then silence. The monitors stopped their frantic beeping. The tiny fists unclenched. On the screen, the heart rate normalized. Complete silence. The woman stopped humming. She glanced up, realized what had happened, and her eyes went wide. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Don't stop." She blinked. "Sir? Whatever you were doing, don't stop." Hesitantly, she started humming again. The baby remained calm, eyes closing, breathing evening out into sleep. Kang stared at her. Really looked at her for the first time. She was young, maybe late 20s. Tired eyes. Worn hands. The kind of person people looked past every day. Invisible. "What's your name?" "Victoria, sir." "How did you do that?" She shifted the mop to one hand. "I didn't do anything. I was just—" Babies respond to rhythm. To calm. He probably feels the vibration more than hears it. "The doctors have been trying for 3 days." "I'm not a doctor." She said it simply, without pride or deflection. "I just work nights. I've cleaned the maternity ward for 2 years." Before Kang could respond, the door burst open. His security chief entered, followed by 2 guards. "Sir, we heard silence and thought." He stopped when he saw the cleaner. "Who is this?" "Leave her alone." "Sir, protocol requires." "I said leave her." The guards exchanged glances but didn't move. That's when the baby started crying again. Loud, immediate, distressed. Victoria took 1 step back toward the door, and the crying intensified. Kang's eyes snapped to her. "Don't move." She froze. Like before." "Sir, I should really." "Now." She swallowed, then started humming again. That same low, steady melody. Within seconds, the baby quieted. His breathing steadied. Sleep returned. The security chief stared. What the hell just happened? Kang's voice was quiet but absolute. "Assign her to this room. She doesn't leave unless I say so." "Sir, she's a cleaner. We can't just." "I don't care what she is. That child responds to her. Until I understand why she stays." He turned to Victoria. "You'll be compensated. Name your price." Victoria looked genuinely confused. "I don't want money. I just want to finish my shift and go home." "That's not an option anymore." Something flickered in her eyes. Not fear, but something harder to name. Resignation, maybe. Or the exhaustion of someone used to having no choice. "Okay. Sit." Kang gestured to a chair beside the incubator. "Stay close to him." She set down the mop and sat, her movements careful and deliberate. The baby slept on, undisturbed. Kang stepped back and pulled his security chief into the hallway. Through the glass, he watched Victoria sitting beside the incubator, her hands folded in her lap, her presence somehow filling the room with a stillness he'd never felt before. "Run a full background check. Every detail." "Already on it, sir." "And find out how a cleaner got past 6 armed guards. She's been working this floor for 2 years. Night shift." The guards recognized her uniform and assumed. Never assume again. Kang's eyes never left the window. "I want to know everything about her by morning." Inside the room, Victoria sat perfectly still, watching the baby sleep. Her face was unreadable. By dawn, Kang had a file on his desk. Victoria Okonkwo, 28, Nigerian immigrant. Work visa. No criminal record. Worked 2 jobs, hospital cleaner by night, grocery stocker by day. Lived alone in a studio apartment in Gwanak. Sent money home to her mother every month. No debts. No relationships. No red flags. Invisible. He returned to the NICU at 8 in the morning. Victoria was still in the chair, though she looked exhausted. The baby was awake but calm, staring at nothing in particular. "You didn't sleep." She looked up. "I was told to stay." "You can rest now. I've arranged a room for you down the hall." "I have to work my other job at noon." "No, you don't. You work for me now." She stood slowly. "I can't afford to lose that job." "You won't need it." Kang moved to the incubator. "I'll pay you 10 times what you make at both jobs combined. All you have to do is stay near my son." "That's not normal." "Nothing about this is normal." He looked at her directly. "You're the only person who can keep him calm. I need you here." She studied him for a long moment, and he saw something shift in her expression. Calculation. Evaluation. She was smarter than she let on. "How long?" "Until I say otherwise." "And if I refuse?" Kang's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. That would be unwise. Most people would have been terrified. But Victoria just nodded slowly, like she'd expected the answer. "But I need to call my other job and explain. And I need to send money home on Friday." "Done." She moved toward the door, then paused. "He's not sick, you know." Kang turned. "What?" "Your son. The doctors keep running tests, but he's not sick. He's just scared." She looked back at the incubator. Premature babies miss the womb. Everything's too bright, too loud, too much. He's not crying because something's wrong. He's crying because he's overwhelmed. "And you know this how?" "Because I listen." She said it simply. People forget that babies are people. Tiny ones, but still people. They feel everything we feel. Fear, confusion, safety. He felt safe when I hummed because he could predict it. Rhythm is predictable. Chaos isn't. Kang absorbed this. The doctors didn't mention any of that. Doctors look at charts. I look at faces. She opened the door. I'll be back in an hour. True to her word, she returned 60 minutes later, carrying a small bag with a change of clothes. By then, 2 nurses and a pediatrician were standing outside the NICU, waiting nervously. He won't stop crying again, one of the nurses said. We tried everything. Victoria entered the room. The baby was screaming, monitors flashing. She set down her bag, moved to the incubator, and started humming. Within 30 seconds, silence. The medical staff stared through the glass like they were watching a magic trick. Kang watched from the doorway. Can you explain what you're doing? Technically. Victoria kept her eyes on the baby. I'm matching my breathing to what his should be. Slow, steady. Babies mirror what's around them. If I'm calm, he feels calm. It's not complicated. Then why doesn't it work when anyone else tries? Because they're trying. They're nervous, rushed, hoping it works. He feels that too. She glanced at Kang. You're terrified of him. He knows. The words hit harder than any bullet. Kang's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. I'm not afraid of anything. You're afraid of failing him. Her voice was gentle but certain. Every time you stand near him, your heart rate spikes. Your breathing changes. He's 3 days old, but he knows you're scared. So he gets scared too. Kang said nothing. He turned and left the room. Over the next week, Victoria became a permanent fixture in the NICU. A cot was brought in for her. Meals were delivered. She rarely left except to shower. The baby, unnamed still, Kang hadn't decided yet, responded to her like a flower to sunlight. When she was near, he was calm. When she left for even 10 minutes, he cried. The nursing staff started asking her questions. How long should we hold him? What does that cry mean? Is this normal? She answered patiently, never condescending, always practical. Kang visited 3 times a day. Always watching. Always silent. On the 8th day, he entered the room and found Victoria holding the baby. The incubator was open, and she had him cradled against her chest, humming softly. The baby's tiny hand gripped her finger. You're holding him. She looked up. The doctor said he's strong enough now. Skin-to-skin contact helps with development. I didn't authorize that. I know. She didn't look apologetic. But he needed it. Kang moved closer. Up close, his son looked even smaller. Fragile. Breakable. Give him to me. Victoria hesitated, then carefully transferred the baby into Kang's arms. He held his son for the first time, stiff and uncertain. The baby's eyes opened. Their gazes met. Then the baby started crying. Kang's jaw clenched. He tried to adjust his hold, but the crying intensified. His heart pounded. Failure. Victoria stood beside him. Breathe slowly. He feels your tension. I am calm. No, you're not. The baby screamed louder. Kang's hands shook slightly. He'd held guns steadier than this. Give him back. You need to. I said give him back. His voice cracked. Victoria took the baby. Instantly, the crying stopped. The child nuzzled against her shoulder and went still. Kang stared at his own hands. Empty. Useless. It's not your fault, Victoria said quietly. Don't. He just needs time to. I said don't. Kang turned toward the door. You're doing fine. Keep doing what you're doing. He left before she could respond. That night, Kang sat in his office across the city, staring at security footage of the NICU. Victoria was visible on screen, holding his son, rocking gently. The baby slept peacefully. His phone buzzed. A message from his second-in-command, * rival faction asking questions about the heir. They know he's vulnerable, *. Kang deleted the message. Another buzzed immediately, recommend increased security. He made a call. Double the guards at the hospital. No one gets near that floor without clearance. Understood, sir. There's also A concern about the woman. What concern? She's a liability. People talk. If word gets out that the heir is attached to a cleaner, let them talk. Sir, respectfully, it makes you look weak. Kang's voice went cold. What makes me look weak is having a son who screams at the sight of me. Fix the security. Leave the woman alone. He ended the call. 2 weeks passed. The baby grew stronger. Victoria remained. And slowly, carefully, Kang started spending more time in the room. Not holding the baby, he tried twice more and failed both times, but watching. Learning. He noticed how Victoria never rushed. How she narrated everything she did in a soft, steady voice. How she held the baby at an angle that let him see her face. Small things. Intentional things. One evening he asked, "Where did you learn this?" She was changing the baby's diaper, moving with practiced efficiency. "I didn't learn it anywhere. I just pay attention." "You said you worked in maternity for 2 years. I cleaned rooms. Empty trash. But I watched the mothers. The good ones, at least." She fastened the diaper and picked up the baby. The best mothers weren't the ones who read all the books. They were the ones who watched their babies and adjusted. And the bad ones? Treated babies like problems to solve instead of people to know. She looked at him meaningfully. He understood the implication. "I'm not treating him like a problem. You're treating him like a test you're failing." The words stung because they were true. Kang had built his entire life on winning. On being better, smarter, stronger than everyone else. But here, in this room, none of that mattered. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. The words came out rougher than he intended. Victoria's expression softened. "Then learn. You have time." "Do I?" He gestured to the window where guards stood watch. "There are people who want him dead. Who see him as a weakness. Every day he's alive is a risk. Then make him your strength instead of your weakness." "How?" She walked over and, without asking permission, placed the baby in Kang's arms. He stiffened immediately. The baby squirmed but didn't cry yet. "Breathe," Victoria said. "Match my rhythm." She started breathing slowly, audibly. Kang synchronized his breathing to hers. The baby's squirming slowed. "Now hum. Doesn't matter what. Just low and steady." "I don't." "Yes, you do. Everyone does." Kang started humming. It felt absurd, but he did it. A tuneless rumble that vibrated in his chest. The baby went still. Not crying. Just listening. "He's hearing you," Victoria whispered. "Keep going." Kang kept humming. His son stared up at him with dark, unfocused eyes. Tiny fingers flexed against Kang's chest. And for the first time, the baby didn't cry in his arms. They stayed like that for 5 minutes. Then 10. When the baby finally dozed off, Kang carefully transferred him back to Victoria, his hands shaking from the effort of staying calm. "You did it," she said, smiling. Kang nodded, unable to speak. Something in his chest felt cracked open. 3 weeks after Victoria entered their lives, everything changed. It was 2 in the morning. Victoria was asleep on the cot, the baby resting in the incubator beside her. Kang was in his office when his phone exploded with alerts. "Breach at the hospital. Armed suspects on 4th floor. Evacuate the heir." He was in his car before the 3rd message came through, driving like the devil was chasing him. His driver and 4 guards followed in a second vehicle. The hospital was only 12 minutes away. It felt like hours. When he arrived, the lobby was chaos. Police. Security. Hospital staff evacuating patients. His head of security met him at the elevator. 7th floor is locked down. The intruders didn't make it past the 5th. But there was gunfire. "We need to move the baby now." They took the stairs. 6 flights at a full run. When Kang burst through the NICU doors, the lights were off. Emergency power only. Victoria was standing beside the incubator, the baby held against her chest. Her eyes were wide but steady. Around her, 4 of Kang's guards formed a protective circle, weapons drawn. The baby was crying. Not screaming, just frightened, confused. Kang crossed the room. "Are you hurt?" "No." "But the lights went out and he woke up and I can't." Her voice trembled. I'm trying to calm him, but he knows something's wrong. Kang reached out slowly. Let me try. She looked uncertain but transferred the baby carefully. Kang held his son and started humming. The same low, steady rhythm Victoria had taught him. The baby's crying slowed. Hiccuped. Stopped. In the darkness, surrounded by armed guards and the distant sound of sirens, Kang rocked his son and hummed. Victoria stared at him. You did it. We're not safe yet. We need to move. They were escorted out through a service exit, 3 cars deep in security. The baby slept through most of it, occasionally stirring when Kang's humming stopped. By dawn, they were in a secure location, a private residence Kang owned but rarely used. The baby was checked by a doctor and declared healthy. Victoria was given a bedroom but didn't sleep. Neither did Kang. They sat in the nursery he'd had prepared, watching the baby sleep in a proper crib for the first time. They were coming for him, Kang said finally. I know. This won't be the last time. I know that too. He looked at her. You can leave. I'll arrange protection and payment. You don't have to stay in this life. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. If I leave, who will teach you the rest? The rest of what? How to be his father. She met his eyes. You did well tonight. But you still tense up when he cries. You still hold him like he might break. He needs you to believe you won't fail him. I might. Everyone might. But you can't parent from fear. She stood and moved to the crib, adjusting the blanket. He's going to grow up in a dangerous world. He needs to know his father isn't afraid of it. Kang stood beside her. I'm not afraid of the world. I'm afraid of being wrong about him. About this. Then be wrong sometimes. Babies are resilient. They don't need perfect. They need present. He watched his son sleep. So small. So impossibly vulnerable. And yet, to life. Fighting. To stay, he said. Not as staff. As family. Victoria turned to him, surprised. I mean it. You're not a cleaner anymore. You're his guardian. He searched for the word. His first teacher. The person who taught both of us how to breathe. She smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd seen from her. I'll stay. 6 months later, the baby, named Jiho, finally, after Kang's father, was thriving. He rarely cried anymore. He was curious, observant, quick to smile. And he responded to Victoria's voice like it was the only sound that mattered. But he also responded to Kang's. Slowly, week by week, Kang learned how to hold his son without fear, how to read his cries and know what they meant, how to play, to soothe, to simply be present. Victoria was always there, guiding without controlling, teaching without judgment. One afternoon, Kang found her in the garden, Jiho in her arms. The baby was babbling, reaching for her face. She laughed and let him grab her nose. Kang approached quietly. He trusts you more than anyone. He trusts you too now. You've earned it. Because you taught me how. She looked up at him. No. I just showed you what you already knew. You were just too afraid to try. Kang sat beside her on the bench. I was terrified. I know. I'm still terrified sometimes. But fear keeps you careful. She handed Jiho to him. The baby went willingly, grabbing Kang's collar and grinning. But don't let it keep you distant. Kang held his son close. Jiho babbled something incomprehensible and pulled at his father's ear. It should have been annoying. Instead, Kang laughed. Victoria smiled. See? You're doing fine. From the doorway, one of Kang's guards watched the scene. A Mafia boss, feared across the country, sitting in a garden with a baby in his lap and a woman who used to clean floors beside him. Laughing. The world hadn't changed. The threats hadn't disappeared. But something fundamental had shifted. The man who ruled fear had raised a child who learned peace first. And it had started with a woman no one noticed, humming in the corner of a hospital room. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. This story is a reminder that sometimes the people we overlook hold the answers we desperately need. If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what part touched you most. More stories like this are coming your way. Until next time, remember, strength isn't always loud, And the most powerful connections often start with the quietest voices.